My full-day kindergarten classroom is inquiry-based, and we learn about what the children are interested in, and often that is science-based. The students are very curious about how things work and always want to know about living things. So for example, right now we're very interested in earthworms. We made our worm farm and have been documenting our learning in our documentation books. Writing is a very big part of the way we share our learning. We talk about how writing that goes out to the world needs to be in book spell, which in kindergarten really just means that it's spelled correctly. So we also go through the editing process. I have found that students are very engaged in their writing because they are very excited about what they're learning about.
Literacy in science to me is not shying away from vocabulary and using the vocabulary that needs to be used so that students can get familiar with it, learn how to work with it, learn how to work with the terms, just generally problem solving on how to figure out what it means. If they can use that within my science class, I'm hoping that at some point they can transfer to their other classes. So I don't shy away. I know in flight we use a lot of airplane terms and I use them all the time, and the students get the students to use them and practice using them so that if they're using them, then hopefully it'll click on what they mean, what they are, and it'll have meaning to them, because if it has meaning to them, then again it'll transfer to all their other classes.
Well, in science, I find it really easy to inject literacy into the classroom. Pretty much every unit, every topic, we can take the core concepts that we're learning from the curriculum and connect it to real-world applications. For example, in my classroom, you would see a lot of article analyses, case studies, where the kids are reading an article that links our concepts in the science classroom to how it can be used in the real world. So applying it and constructing meaning from those concepts so that it may look like maybe a career choice in the future. It may look like something that might impact them personally in their life with a friend, a family member, or just finding new information and being lifelong learners.
A literacy-rich classroom in French strikes a balance between oral communication, reading, and writing, allowing students multiple opportunities to use and reuse French language for the purpose of real communication. Although oral communication is the foundation of learning a language, reading and writing are not separate entities. It cannot be isolated in the classroom. Language learning is developmental and requires reading and writing to round out a balanced literacy approach. Reading gives the students a structure through which to understand the language they have heard, to see language structures in print, while writing allows for consolidation of learning and provides opportunities for authentic communication. As students listen, speak, read, and write, they are able to use familiar structures and expressions with more and more autonomy, allowing students to make personal connections to learning French. As a result, students gradually become more fluent and begin to understand real-life values and advantages of being able to communicate in French.
Students are learning phonemic awareness and developing vocabulary skills so that they can be understood. They are taking in new information that they have learned and also activating prior knowledge using decoding skills to make sense of it, and then they're applying it to speak, read, and write in a clear and meaningful way. In learning how the language works, students are also developing problem-solving skills. We plan for conversations where the students can lead and become more confident in their speaking skills, and these conversations are also meaningful to them because they're speaking about topics that they enjoy and that matter to them, and can share their thoughts and ideas and are hearing from other students as well.
Literacy-rich environment in an English language arts classroom gives all children the opportunity to connect to the outside world and use their imagination. It provides children with a window to inspire wonderings, explorations, and opportunities to find answers to their own questions. Using technology and literacy together enhances each student's experience with the communities around them. Writing for an authentic audience gives students opportunities to use their voice individually and as a group. They discover that they have the ability to create change, bring awareness regarding topics that are important to them, as well as teach and inspire others regardless of age. The teacher's role is to provide enough rich literacy-based resources to support the path that each student chooses to explore. Selecting appropriate grade-level texts helps students to become successful readers, but giving children the chance to choose what sparks their interest engages them even more. Exposure to rich fiction and nonfiction texts helps students grow as writers and build vocabulary.
In my language arts classroom, I believe in reading every day. I think the students should be reading all the time. We're just finishing up our independent novel studies. During independent novel studies, I have groups of 3 to 5 students reading a novel together based on their reading level and their interests. These students then collaborate daily on events, characters, and motivation behind what they are reading. When students are finished, they have a choice as to how they want to display their learning. They could choose to create a diorama, write an essay, perform a short skit, or complete an inquiry project of their choosing. What students love about this the most is having the flexibility to make choices about what and how they're learning. And what I love about this is seeing the students practice and utilize the skills that I've been teaching them for 8 months and them actually being excited about doing it.
Literacy in the high school English classroom looks like the analysis of literary devices and their impact, and exploring the nuances of language. It can involve emulation of an author or following the conventions of a genre while writing. It is communicating ideas orally or engaging in a debate. It looks like students working in groups, teaching one another how to interpret texts, completing a task, or partaking in a competition. It encompasses students engaging with texts. It is knowing the intended audience of a text, writing with purpose, and peer editing to enhance one another's work. It involves preparation for the future by preparing professional online personas, resumes, and being interviewed.
A literacy-rich math classroom looks like children using math. It's taking their knowledge of numbers and manipulating numbers and problem solving. Children who are in a literacy-rich are going to be able to solve day-to-day problems. They're going to be able to go out in the real world and understand data and use math to reason and solve problems. They use math numbers and their knowledge of the manipulation of numbers to improve their life in math in the real world.
I believe literacy has a very important role in the math classroom. Students need to be able to decipher a variety of different texts and use that information to solve problems. Even if it's just playing a game, they need to understand what they've read and be able to apply the rules. Vocabulary is also an important part of the math classroom. It builds from year to year, so it's crucial they have a good vocabulary knowledge. Students are required to write all the time in math when they are asked to explain their thinking and show what they know. They're using literacy skills all the time.
To me, the word literate means being able to read, write, and speak a language. And I think math is no different. You have to learn how to read it, you have to learn how to write it, and then you have to make sure you know how to speak it so that other people can understand you and what you're trying to get your point across when you're sharing your thinking with others. So one exercise we did do today in class was the pyramid activity, which the kids get to speak the language and they get to communicate with one another and collaborate and kind of talk about those key words you guys saw on the board there. And if they can talk the language, then I think they have a chance of understanding when they read it, and then taking what they read and write the appropriate answers to myself or our classmate.
A literacy-rich classroom in social studies starts with critical questions that analyze and evaluate historical perspectives and different sources of information. So was Henry Hudson a master explorer or a bully? Why did Europeans trade their paddle boats for Aboriginal canoes? And the Acadian question, traders or refugees? Then students learn to challenge conventional and accepted ways of thinking that they see all around them in text, talk, behaviors, and also digital artifacts.
social studies classroom is exploration through the historical thinking concepts. Primarily, students explore the historical thinking concepts using a variety of primary resources. Historical thinking encourages students to make connections using cause and consequence, continuity and change, and taking on historical perspective. And we examine a variety of texts, observing how language has changed through time. And students are often encouraged to use the inquiry approach in order to develop essential questions and present their ideas to the class.
A literacy-rich classroom in phys ed is one in which students are developing the competence and confidence to enjoy a variety of physical activities. By developing a movement vocabulary of fundamental movement skills, the students will gain more confidence and become more motivated to lead active lifestyles. We can foster this in the gym and also outside the gym by allowing time for free play, providing opportunities for cooperative activities, allowing the students to ask questions, and providing them with numerous different activities and games. With each new skill learned through these activities, the students can build confidence, which in turn allows them to be more motivated to try something new. The hope is that they become physically literate and become motivated and confident enough to be active throughout their lives.
During physical education at Ness Middle School, we focus on developing students who are physically literate as well as literate. Physical literate students consistently develop the motivation and ability to understand, communicate, apply, and analyze different forms of movement. For example, lead-up games like flag tag allow students to develop movements such as sidestepping, lateral movements, and evading skills so they can be successful in games like flag rugby, flag football, and these skills also transfer to sports like basketball and volleyball. Physically literate students are able to demonstrate a variety of movements confidently and competently across a wide range of health-related activity. These skills enable students to make healthy, active choices that both benefit themselves and others.
Here at John Taylor, we found that a literacy-rich classroom has included using the Fitbit, which students have found to be very effective in helping them calculate their overall steps per day. Students have found the Fitbit to be an effective tool to analyze their own workout results and reflect on how their workout went. We've had students analyze their results on the computer from the Fitbit in charts and graphs, and it has caused them at times to make changes to the way they design their workouts. We found it to be a very effective tool for students to get feedback on their own performance.
A literacy-rich classroom in music not only looks like note reading and learning how to read music, but starting out with your basics of identifying animal rhythms and all the sounds in kindergarten right through to reading notes in grade 5. The classroom should be rich with print so that we're describing all the things that we learn in music, dynamics and tempo. And as well as you can have art and books around that we can use those books to enhance with musical instruments and bring the story to life with the children.
Literacy in my art room focuses on visual literacy. That means, can students create or look at a piece of artwork, be it a drawing, graphic design, photography, comics, etc., and be able to understand what the elements are that make up the piece, and do they have the vocabulary to articulate what the meaning of the piece is or what it communicates to them. As well, we also focus on design. This includes having the students work cooperatively to generate ideas, lots of brainstorming, grouping similar ideas, sorting, creating prototypes, etc. They have to be able to communicate with each other in order to work through the design process.
Literacy in the dance room consists of many aspects. It's not just meaning, it's movement, and it's also language. In JT, in our dance program, we focus on jazz technique. That jazz technique comes from ballet, which originates from the French language. So students in my dance program need to understand or learn
ballet terminology, which is French, learn the meaning in English, and then the meaning from that actual English word translates into the actual movement. So an example of it, we do chassés across the floor. So it's a basic connecting step, but it means to chase. What your physical movement is then doing is your back leg is chasing your front leg. So it all matches up. So once kids actually have the understanding of the meaning of the term, they can then perform the movement and understand the meaning.
Technology has changed the way we present literacy in the classroom. Of course, it is used as a resource for research across curricular areas, but it has also changed the way we present literature in our classrooms. It's given us new ways of showing and sharing our learning. For example, students use Book Creator to share. They have the ability not only to write, but also to orally share their thoughts. It's a whole new way to enrich our classrooms with literacy. QR codes allow us to infuse literacy into the classroom in a new way. QR codes can create interactive bulletin boards. Scanning a QR code is a simple way to direct students to the story related to our artwork. It's another way to present literature and enrich literacy in our classrooms.
Technical literacy plays a huge role in children's day-to-day lives. Being able to independently and responsibly use devices effectively is paramount to the lives of students today. Using tools to create, evaluate, manage, and communicate information are technical literacy skills needed in today's world.
Well, at one point, most of the time, they need to be able to read a recipe, which is a document that is very sequential and task-oriented. So that's very important. They also need to be able to use that information and use it for analysis and communicate it to others so that they're teaching others about the health of the food that we're eating.
Literacy in graphic arts is all about communication. Whether students are reading instructions for their tutorials or whether they're writing their own work and worried about spelling, grammar, and punctuation. In some designs, there may be very little text. Here, the fonts and colors used as well as placement on the page can become just as important as the actual text. Assignments like these push students to challenge their higher level thinking skills. In all areas of design, communication of an idea, a message, or an emotion is paramount.